Hello, everybody. Mark Seguin, Minnesota Swim and Vibe. I am here with a little coaches chat on a Thursday evening. With us today, we have John Bradley of Minnetonka Swim Club and Mr. Tom Walsh of Rochester Swim Club. Let's talk about an interesting topic that came from a post JB had on Facebook to the Coaches Exchange is really, why are some meets so hard to run these days? Why are they so complicated? And is that really taking from what used to be a fun experience to kind of something that's a little bit stressful and complicated, making our overall experience not that great? Does that sound about right, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go in anti-alphabetical order. Tom, what makes swim meets so hard, in your opinion? Number one reason.
I think the number one reason is the manpower that it takes to operate these things and the expectations that not only our swimmers, our coaches, our parents all have to go and do these things, and what we've kind of maybe taken for granted over the past few years and how it's changed from expectations versus the reality of actually operations.
Okay, speak a little bit more about that too, with the expectations. So what is all the person power needed to run these meets? That what has changed there, and what has caused it to change?
Um, well, I think a lot of things have changed in the, I would say, post-COVID era.
Okay,
Um, and the reason I say that is I think pre-COVID things were far enough removed at this point in time that it's really since we've come back. I mean, think about how simple meets were when we were in that COVID era. It was, hey, there's 24 people in here, come and race, and it was all about racing.
yeah.
And it has shifted. I mean, I think the things that really have changed are you have Matt from USA Swimming and how much more safety protocols go into running a meet and
Okay.
control and access points. That's part of it. But then just the physical manpower that it takes to actually run a meet. I mean, each session of the age group state meet takes us about 30 to 35 volunteers. So, um, you know,
Mm,
over seven sessions plus miles adds up really fast. From Colorado meat marshals, timers, hospitality workers, awards workers, concessions running, and general people on deck to help out and do the other tasks that are necessary. It's become a lot. And I think we've tried to reduce our state meets to size and timelines and stuff like that, but still takes a lot of bodies to actually make these things run. And then I think it runs into your other issue, which is people don't really want to volunteer anymore. Their time is very valuable to them, and um it makes it even harder to get people to buy into helping and doing those things beyond just a sense of community and wanting to be there to help. And it takes a village to do it and get all these things covered.
JB, what's your experience with this? What's your thoughts? Agree, disagree? Other issues?
I agree with Tom on pretty much all of it. When I learned how to swim and I had went to my first swim meet, so it was a summer club situation. And we didn't have electronic timing. I mean, we were literally just using stopwatches. My dad was the starter. He used a 22, literally a 22 cap gun that would
Yeah.
use blanks. I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? And you know, you wanted to be there because as a little kid that you get to hang out with your buddies, you'd get to go to this environment that was crazy. It was a little freaky, but get to go to these different pools that you never swam at, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't remember my parents saying, "Here's $20, go get yourself some food." I mean, we had the orange slices. Maybe if I lucked out, my mom would pack a tab. That's how far back we're going. That's a
Yeah.
Diet Coke
Oh,
kind of thing, and we'd go and participate, as my mom also used to call it, the mimosa and lemonade circuit, because that's exactly what it was. That parents liked being around each other. They were having fun and they do their thing, and you usually be in and out in about 3 hours, right?
okay.
And that was the whole deal. And we would run those meets, rain or shine. The only time we'd back them off is if there was lightning, some kind of dangerous situation. Now we've turned this into something that's quite a bit different. And I think a lot of people did a lot of soul searching during COVID about how they wanted to spend their time when this was all over. And I think we're still seeing a lot of that stuff happening right now. And when we say to our parents, okay, here's the deal, we're going to this meet. Maybe we're going to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours. Maybe we're not. Sometimes we have to, sometimes we don't. You're going to get there. It's going to be, super early in the morning. You're going to walk probably before dawn when you get there, if we're talking winter meets. You walk in and you're paying, probably anywhere from $40 to $60 a day for your kid to be there. You're packed into a hot, gross environment. If you're hosting the meet, you're expected to work, even though you're paying for all these entries and stuff. How much money did you pay to get there? If it's 2-day meet, are you staying over? What does that cost? All of this stuff isn't fun. This is all how do we make this happen stuff. And somewhere along the way, we have lost track of this just being a fun event, whether it's the coaches who aren't thinking in terms of, how do we hook these kids, the parents who think it has to be this way, the officials who need to have, 10 people on deck. All of this stuff is crazy, and it doesn't have to be like this. But we've conditioned ourselves to believe that if we do it at the senior level, it all has to match at the age group level. And I think that's hurting us in the long run to get kids involved, get them on the squads, get them to the meets, and most importantly, get them out of there at a reasonable hour so they can have a reasonable weekend. Families can be families.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's interesting how, as you lay it out, there's so much more that goes into it. You would think that with the more to the technology is advanced, the more we've had practice of doing this, we'd actually get better at it. What do you think has caused us to take a step back and uh, go from what was simple to making it complex now? Is it the expectations that are driving this? Um, do we think more complicated is just better? Is it what we see at the elite level? Therefore, we think we need to replicate that to make it feel like a more elite competition. What are some of the things that are like driving this? Because clearly it doesn't seem to make sense to me. If you said, hey, I got a great idea for this sport, let's make people spend more time, be more miserable, spend more money, and get less out of it, I'd be like, I don't think that's a great business idea. So what do you guys think, Tom, first with you, what took us there? What led us there?
I think it's really simple. I
Okay.
think it's absolute resistance to change. And it's not adapting to a modern day thing. You know, I think back to like 15 years ago when we were going to the state meets. Well, they were time finals at points. Now we got to do prelim finals for our 11 and 12-year-olds and our 13, 14-year-olds. And it's so much unnecessary add or filler to the meets that's not really beneficial to the kids. I mean, here's what I think we do really well with swim meets. We theme them so they're fun. We try and have a good music, like with a DJ and
Yeah,
and
good
an
energy.
announcer, and try and have a good environment, because that seems to make everything better, right? Is when people are in a good mood and it's not stressed. I think back to our 10 and under meet that we just hosted, the 10 and under state meet. People or coaches are like, oh, they should all be together. They should all be together. Yeah, but the stands in Rochester had 700 people in the stands for a 140 kid session.
Yeah.
There's a limitation to what you can do in that sense, and like, you create a good environment when you have spectators that are there, interested, invested in the kids, and that's important.
Well, I also think
But
you can only maintain a certain level of energy for so long, right? You can't
correct.
have an 8-hour super hype session. It just doesn't work that way.
Correct. I mean, I think about like what we have to do with these warm-up sessions to get everybody in and then get all
Ridiculous.
these kids through the swimmers. And I think the other thing, kind of going back to the logistics part that JB was talking about, is like it's it's so late in the game that you don't you don't know any different at the time you're 13 or 14, because that's the way it's been the whole time. Unless you're brand new to the sport, it's like, nope, this is the way it always is. And I think there's so many little quality of life things that we could do to save time to make things better.
Yeah.
And but going to your comment, yeah, I think people see the junior nationals and the senior national meets, and they're like, no, that's what everything should be all the way down. And I mean, let's be honest, swimming is silly with the way they officiate. Our 8 and unders are officiated the same way our Olympians are, and they're not the same thing. No other sport is like that. In baseball, it's not, it starts out with T-ball and then it goes to coach pitch and stuff like that. Basketball, the hoop isn't 10 feet in the air for an 8 and under. And I think that does play in a factor is we don't have this really basic process down. We always do from the top down, and it just doesn't work. It's starting to break, and you're seeing this. I mean, why would anyone really want to be at a meet for, say you're swimming a couple of races, you're swimming for 10 minutes maybe over the course of the weekend. Why do you want to be there for an hour and a half warm up and then a 4-hour session to get your minute and 30-second swim in? It doesn't make sense.
I get that. JV, chime in. How'd we get here?
Well, I think a big part of this has to do with the concept of fairness and the idea that we need to make everything as fair as absolutely possible. And I don't think anyone has any bad intentions here. I don't think that's the case at all. What I think has happened is we're always in this search for the perfect environment where everything is fair and everything is equal. And one of the things I love about John Barnes is an idea he has about running meets where we don't use watches. We just pick place. And it's all about racing. And honestly, that's when swim meets are the most fun, is the racing. A close second is probably like playing cards with your buddies and stuff. But man, nothing gets people fired up at a swim meet like a really close race. And it doesn't matter if it's the best kids, the average kids, the kids who are just learning. It doesn't matter. When people are racing, people are invested and involved. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff we could do to bring that out of more people. But in order to do that, we have to change some of those attitudes. And again, the first thing that would happen is we'd have to change a little bit of how we feel about fairness. I think it would surprise a lot of people to know that swimming used to go 3 digits deep. It wasn't just to the 100th, it was to the 1,000th. And if you look back in like the 72 Olympics at the running clock, that's what it was, for even more precision. This is not a new problem. This is something that, we're trying to navigate. But what I think has happened is, again, with all of these societal changes, the way we perceive what youth sports are, all of it, that's led us here. And I think the time is now to push back on that a little bit and say, well, what if we did this a little bit differently? What if every club team had a junior team? And that junior team was just kids who, hey, I like swimming a couple of days a week. I do my thing. And you just do a fun meet. And you make it all dual meets all the way around. Little fast dual meets that are done in an hour and 20 minutes. Everybody swims 2 or 3 races. And you know what else? Bring back relays. Get the kids swimming relays, especially the littles, because that's what this is all about. We've got to get these opportunities for kids to feel that competitive thing and have fun in it and want that at meets. I think a lot of it takes care of itself if we can do that. But, if we had just some little leagues, if we had some outdoor meets where we were, go out to the 25-yard pool at St. Louis Park if you can. We don't have to do everything long course in the summer. We have plenty of yard pools. We could do this easily. But again, I think it's just this is kind of where we're at. And, and I'm sure we will talk about resources later, because who's going to run some of this stuff? And that's the other thing. Does everything have to be $1 million for you to participate in it? So that was kind of all over the place.
That's interesting.
That's what I'm thinking.
No, and I think we're kind of all in the same thing. Is we made it more complex. We made it harder to do because we think every little piece of this sport has to be like the elite level almost. So when he talked about to the 1,000th of a second, that was only available at the Uber elite level because it was super expensive.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Now that technology is available across the board, we say, aha, we must apply that to everything. It doesn't fit everything, right?
Well,
a lot of age group swimming, note cards, and little handwritten stickers on ribbons do just fine, right?
Well, one of the dumbest things that we do for 8 and under swimming is we use touchpads. Why?
Why? Yeah.
That's a piece of gear that, I mean, if it's set up, great, but if you're running a bunch of littles, why even use touchpads? Half of the time they don't fire.
Yep.
You'd be better off with a button and a watch,
Yep.
and just run it that way. But again, what are we trying to do?
Well, and
What's the
here's going to
whole
be the
point?
pushback that you'll hear on that is coaches and parents, those two specifically, will say, "Well, my kids' times won't be in the swims database then," right? And my response is, until they're 12 or 13, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah.
No offense, but I don't. That's the change you're going to have to get people through. And it's going to be the coaches first, and then the coaches are going to have to educate the parents and say, it's okay that little Johnny at age 9 doesn't have a time in the swims, their best time in the swims database. It's not going to ruin their chance to swim D1 because they're 9. They might actually like drama better. You just don't know yet.
Well,
So that's
and
that's a really hard conversation. Can you imagine trying to pivot on that? The resistance that would be against that?
think about it like this. All right, so let's say you took all the 10 and unders out of the swims database.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been noticing lately is there's a whole cottage industry that looks like it's sprung up, ranking kids against each other by their graduation year.
Yeah.
And I've seen it as young as 11 years old. And there is no certainty in this at all. There is no certainty that when you are phenomenal as a little kid, that you're going to be phenomenal when you're older. A lot of those kids end up being pretty good, but there is so much green between here and there. I mean, and we've all seen it. We've seen that kid when they're 13, where you're like, kid's got a junior cut. They're just loving it. They're loving everything. And then 3 years later, they're on a B relay in a high school meet, and people are saying, "Yeah, I remember when they were so good. Yeah, what happened?" Nobody really knows or wants to talk about it. And there are thousands of kids that happens to every year. It's about losing those kids. It's about other kids who are, end up being 6'5", 6'6" when they're 20 years old, and they haven't swum since they were 11 because they didn't feel like they were getting any recognition, or nobody was talking to them because everybody's focused on somebody. Everybody has to be treated in a special way, but we've got to be smart about what special means, and that's the trick.
I mean, I think our measures of success have to be age appropriate, because I don't think time is a true measure until you're post puberty, right?
Yep.
And does it make sense to apply something like the phone rule? You're seeing there are three basic classifications for phones in schools: elementary, middle school, high school. If you've got kids who are in elementary school, odds are they're not using that phone. I don't think any districts are really allowing those kids to have phones. Middle school, you're starting to see a lot of schools put restrictions on the phones. Sometimes you got to turn them in at the beginning, whatever it is. High school, I don't think any high school has put the kibosh on it yet completely, because I think that there's a lot of, and then I don't know if it's correct or incorrect. I couldn't give you a real opinion on it, but I don't think that that's the issue right now. It seems like it's the younger kids. So does it have to be that way for the grades? For the kids who are in elementary school? Why? What's the point?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
I wrote a few anecdotal things around as you guys were talking there. I just kind of keeping this on the swim meets, and really, why is it so hard?
Yeah.
There's too many events for little kids, especially the 11 and 12s. I mean, you've got 3 stroke races for flyback and breast. You have both IMs. You have the 50 to the mile. There's just too many races, and it also adds to length. And as much as I'd like to say that adds to well-roundedness, we need to go to meets where it's the 200 backstroke, the 100 breaststroke, the 50 butterfly, and those are the 3 events, and those are the 3 events you're swimming.
Yeah.
I really think that would help teach kids to be better instead of mom and dad picking events or coaches picking events, because the coaches do that too. I'm guilty of it. Oh yeah, I want you to keep swimming this, right?
Yeah.
But you said something earlier. like, you know, when like you're a little kid, they're like, oh, you know, get in trouble. Like this is going on your permanent record.
Do
And then you become an adult and you're like, wait, what happened to my permanent record?
you know how big mine
That's
would be? Oh my God. It'd be its
that's
own
12 and
library.
under swimming as a whole is
Yeah.
it none of it goes on your permanent record because and even when you're 15,
No one gives a shit.
like that it doesn't matter. Like if you're going to go and swim division 1 and you're trying to be recruited, it matters at that point in time. But
Yep.
really, it still matters what you're doing in your junior, and senior year, and especially with the commitment as early as it is now. There is no permanent record. Like no one's going to remember what place Billy got, except for probably Billy
Yep.
at his 12 and under state meet, maybe his mom and dad. But I think the other thing that is, and we did this weekend, is it goes back to the awards and the recognition piece of it. Well, that 11-year-old didn't feel any good because he has all the state cuts, but he's like a 16th to,
Yep.
24th place state kid. Well, that's a big accomplishment in our
It's
sport,
huge. That's top
but we
5% in
don't
the state.
recognize that at all.
No.
If you were that position at any state meet previous
Yep.
to the last two, you didn't get a ribbon. There was no accolades. Oh, you scored a point for your team. Yippee.
I
That's
cannot
nothing.
think of a single club meet where I was ever on a podium, regardless of what it was, right?
Yeah.
All the way up to regional level meets. There was just never this podium thing.
Yeah.
I think that's
And,
part of the problem too.
like, and I think that recognition should come from a lot of different avenues, right?
Yep.
Like we should be awarding our 12 and unders.
Absolutely.
People got rid of awards in the mid 2010s
Yep.
because we got rid of our ABC open format for US Minnesota swimming. And so everyone's like, oh, well, I'll just cut awards. Well, because there's not a bunch of kids in that age group swimming. Going back to JB's comment about the best racing, two most exciting things in swimming: swim offs
Time trials.
and
Yep.
time trials.
Yeah.
Right? Like not even the sport. They're like,
How the hell did you drop a second and a half and 100 in an hour?
Yeah.
Correct. Well, I do have an answer for that, Mark.
Yeah.
Because the kid learned how to swim it and swim it better
Yeah.
from the time that he did it. But our swim meets are so infrequent. Why do kids get better and consistently better throughout a high school season? Because they're racing the same races every week and they can learn and tweak and adjust. Like we don't have that situation. We're like delayed gratification, delayed gratification, delayed gratification. It's okay to swim slow all season. Okay, big championship meet. Nope.
Yep.
Now the only thing that matters is your place and your time. Ready, go. Like, and it doesn't make any sense. Like,
well, and even at the bigger level, I think kind of, and I'll call this more of the elite level, all you're doing all season long is swimming suited meets, right? It's like 5 or 6 suited meets. You don't have those ones where you're like, hey, I'm going to whip out my 400 IM and my 200 breasts and let's see how it goes, right? I'm embarrassed to say I had elite swimmers that had never swam the 800 or the mile, right? And I'm like, why? They're like, I don't like it. I'm like, okay, you got to swim those things, right? You learn on those. And then sometimes it's great when you need a best time to swim that thing you haven't swam in 3 years.
So something that I was just thinking about, we used to do this in Wisconsin. And I think that this might help with some of these meets. As coaches for club, we're always looking for, okay, who's got the mile? Where's this meet? Where's that meet? Where can I swim a full boat? Whatever. And in Wisco, we'd have assigned weekends. So the first weekend of every month, it was always if you were running a meet, you had to offer the 400 IM. The second weekend, if you were running a meet, you had to run the mile. Third weekend, if you were running a meet, you had to run the 500. Fourth weekend, you had to do the 1,000 to the 800. And every month it was the same. So you would know that on those particular days or on those particular weekends, I could get in a mile. I could get in this, I could get in that, and you could plan it out. Because we're always trying to cram all of these things in on a 2-day meet, we get stuck. Or we try to cram it in on Friday of a 3-day meet.
Yep.
And if we would just say we don't have to offer everything, but you're not going to be in the dark about what we are going to offer, it would help coaches immeasurably. I mean, you could plan your weekends out a lot easier.
So it's interesting. I'm hearing a lot of different things that I'll come back to where we started. We need to simplify the experience. And there's a variety of different ways it sounds like we can do that, whether it be in format, whether it be, I'm trying to get the word, how we officiate it, right?
Yeah.
The amount of technology that we apply to it, technology at a younger age group actually is more work than less. Yeah, you won't get your times in the swim database, but that's okay. Um, and you could if you really wanted to. You could
Mhm.
pay some
Yeah.
poor schmuck to do data entry if you had to. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways I think that you guys have kind of hit on that we could really simplify this. Now, I'll pivot on this to block party, which I know you're both big proponents of. How does that fit in this? This is kind of block party to me is like the ultimate simplification.
Oh,
That-
I love block party. And I'll tell you this. I've had more success with kids getting better at swimming with block party in the last year than everything else. I actually think kind of swim meets have we are a chicken or the egg scenario with the times and the money. Well, they're expected to go fast because they're paying a lot of money, and they're paying a lot of money, so they're expected to go fast. And it has kind of really watered down what meets are. And I think we're like where we have our block party meets and we run a circuit or a series of block party meets in Rochester because it is we can do them here in our own pool and we don't have
Yep.
to travel to do it. But we have where we provide all of the 50s for our younger kids, but then we add in a few of the other events for our older kids on a
Sure.
rotation so that they get the opportunity. But it's the only time that the kids don't feel pressure because it's $10 or 20
Yeah.
bucks or whatever, and not $80 in a hotel room or whatever. And I don't think that every parent thinks that way. And I'll preface this like I don't think that that's the thought from everyone, but it's definitely the thought from enough people that we should be concerned about it. And
Yeah.
if that pressure and the time becomes so valuable at every meet instead of the process, we've lost what our sport is about.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, what our
Yeah.
sport is about. Like we are supposed to be educating and teaching kids how to get through hard things and learn through challenges
yeah.
and get better on the other side of it, not just because of ease and or adversity,
Yep.
but because it's these core principles. What do you want the kid to do? Well, oh, I need to learn from a mistake so I can get better the next time, right? Like that's a pretty simple process. It doesn't matter what sport you're in, but that is what we want to teach. But when that doesn't seem to be reasonable because of the cost and the expectations that are put on all of these meets, man, we are really walking a fine line of what's even responsible at that point.
Yeah, and I think we as a sport serve it up to I don't blame the parents for the most part. We serve it up to them like this is what the sport's going to be. Here's the money we need, here's the time we expect out of you. And oh by the way, here's Meet Mobile so you can follow it along in great detail and compare your kid next to everybody else all the time. Right? Like we tee it up so perfectly for parents to say this is what the sport's all about. And we don't do the other half and be like, you know, how many Facebook posts of parents are out there and go, hey, Timmy had the worst meet of his life, added in 36 events, but he showed great resilience and he's going to grow up better for it. You don't get that. You get podium picks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Guilty.
Yeah.
we've treated swimming like dog racing almost, and like you think about it, what are the best parts of going to the dog track? Well, the first thing was, you get to watch the racing.
Yep.
So, and then there's money on the line. And not that anybody's ever gambling on swimming, but it amps it up. So you're watching this, and it's like, man, there they go, and everybody's getting crazy and whatever. And I think the dogs like racing each other, chasing the rabbit,
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Who
but what
doesn't?
we did is instead we said, hey, let's focus on the statistics and let's really dial into this experience of just being there, standing around and watching this happen. Oh, and for the kids, yeah, you're
There
gonna
is no
race
rabbit.
every no, no, there's not. And we need to be, maybe the lesson to learn is we need to be focusing on the experience,
Yep.
and we need to get more kids involved. We
Yeah.
need to get more kids who are just getting in and trying it out. And as coaches, we need to find a way to make it appealing. And it's not for everybody. No sport is. Everybody's going to
No.
have their hang up on one thing or the other. We don't need to capture every kid. But man, if we could just get another 10 senior kids on some of the teams that maybe only have 10 senior kids on their team,
Yep.
we'd really be doing something. And we'd have those kids for a longer period of time, which means that the investment that they would make into the club would be more sustained, which means there'd be more resources available
Yep.
to get the things that you need to make the experience even better. Whether that's more kickboards or something crazy, it's some kind of crazy training tool, whatever it is, we're reducing that dependence on going to meets or running meets that cost $100 to $150, and it's more organic. It's all
Yeah.
contained in the membership. It's contained in the actual club experience, which I think is maybe the best way to be a little more concise. But let's focus on the club experience and how do we make that better? You know,
I think
it's
that's a
especially with
valid
regards to me.
point. And you can get more kids in, which is increasing the amount of revenue you're bringing in, and reduce the amount of resource it takes to run meets. That's winning on both sides, right? That's more
Yep.
in, less out. That's just
Yep.
common sense stuff. Let me throw the real challenging question out there. Uh, who, who, or how? How do you make the change? How do you get the pivot? How do you break the cycle of what we're currently in? Who's responsible?
I think that it has to come from the coaches that understand this
Yep.
and aren't willing to keep doing this the way we are. Um, I don't think it's going to come from an officiating standpoint. I just feel
Shouldn't.
like every
I don't
year
think it
there's
should. Yeah.
but I feel like every year there's new rules and it makes it more difficult, I guess, if you will, to do what we're doing. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it in our retention numbers across like I think about like all those asks by like Jay Chambers and stuff like that on the idea exchange. It's like, how do you retain coaches? How do you retain athletes? Yeah, like they realize the problem is change or die. And we're seeing this. We're seeing the
Yeah.
drop off in kids that are doing it over the last 4 years. We have a trend. There's more relay only swimmers every year.
Uh-huh.
That's not a good thing in
Yeah.
terms of getting kids involved in the meet. That is oh man, we have to survive and we have to get Billy and Johnny and Susie and, Sydney to come and swim at the meet, even though they're not qualified for the meet.
Yep.
And the reason you're seeing that is because there's not any sort of long-term thought of, oh, how do we do this and how do we make this better in the future? So the answer is, I think you have to come from the coach's standpoint.
Okay.
I still believe that when Minnesota Swimming hired a sports development director, I think that is the route. You have to have one person that's going to be in charge
Yep.
and lead and design and make it their own. It cannot be a committee. Every time we do everything by a committee, everything that we've done over committees over the last 10 years, the antage is, what do you get when your committee draws a horse? You get a camel.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're getting with our things, because it's not a visionary thing where it's one person that is maybe using other people as a resource. And then that changes every 2 years. It's a
Yep.
new age group chair. It's a new senior chair, and it's new people in these positions. Tech planning is non-existent in terms of what they were doing 15 years ago, where it was, oh, we're going to design these meets and we're going to look out 4 years and things like that. We don't know what our summer championships are going to be
Yeah.
next year, and we're less than 12 months away.
From a little bit of
That
an outsider perspective, it feels like we're working really hard to just keep the lights on.
correct. And I actually agree with that. And because it's not that there's no long-term plan, but because there is no one vision coming from and it doesn't need to be an individual, but a core ideology of,
Yep.
hey, these are the things that we're going to do. I don't think you'll ever see the change because it's too many people. Well, I want Johnny to do this. I want prelims finals. I don't want prelims finals. And it's not what's best for our sport in the long run to develop these athletes and maybe not even develop the athletes. It's to make sure that the kids are having a great experience and the parents are having a great experience and the coaches and the officials are also having a great experience. Because I'm going to tell you this, walking off the pool deck at 6 o'clock, I'm having a way better experience than I am walking off the pool deck at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And so is every mom and dad, and so is every kid. When a kid doesn't have to an 11 or 12-year-old doesn't have to take a nap in between every session of a state meet to survive the meet,
Yeah.
we're not talking about good experiences.
That sounds good. JB, your thoughts on who leads the charge to make the change if we can?
Well, the first thing is I'm really going to listen to what Tom has to say and what he just said, because Tom has an 8-year-old daughter who's swimming. And how old is your youngest? 5?
Yeah.
And a 5-year-old who's also swimming. And I watch those little ones. It's one of the fun things for me has been watching Tom's kids get a little older and watching him be a dad and be a good coach and all that. I mean, that's the coolest part of all this. But he's right in the middle of it, and he's seeing it. We have a lot of coaches who are a little bit older, whose kids are now 18, 20, 22 years old, and things are different now than they were when your kids were 8, 9, 10 years
Mhm.
old. The way we
Absolutely.
approach the sport, the way they process information, the way, all of it. It's all different. And there's nothing wrong with trying something different. One of the things I don't understand, I've never understood this for age group swimming, why not just have a time standard that's the same for 4 years? Just leave it. And everybody's like, oh, well, we gotta drive performance with time standards. Well, do we for 1,200 kids? I mean,
No,
yeah, I want to see our kids be good, but you know, i- if
I
your
would I
kids are
would
going to
give
be
them a bonus where, like, if they can hit 2 free throws and they're close to the cut time, they get to go. Like,
sure,
that's me,
do something
right?
funny, or you know what? If you can hit 3 of 5
Yeah,
bottle flips, yeah, you get to go. We're doing it,
exactly.
whatever. But
All right.
again,
Uh, I would like to see the bottle flip competition actually make its way in. That
Like,
was where
why
I was
not?
going with that.
all right,
And I
well,
think
hold
that's prevalent to every kid.
Yeah.
now, hold on a second, because and I'm going to divert here. We can cut this out and re-put it someplace
Oh,
else.
we
But
will. Trust me. We could
the
go side tangent here.
Tom, remember when we were talking with Burvey and Welton about our great swim meet like gaming day? And the
Yep.
idea was going to be, it was like 6 things that all swimmers know how to do. So one would be bottle flipping, one was like
Kickboard
one was
toss.
card playing. Yeah, each one was something that you would do at a
Yeah.
swim meet. And we were like, oh, we'll go
The
from this
goggle
to
flip.
this. And that would be a heck of a fun meet. I mean,
Oh
to
my
do some
God.
fun stuff like that. But you'd have to have the right kids there who don't view every meet opportunity as, you know, live and die, because it's
No.
not.
Kids will
It's
only do that if the coaches and the parents do. They will not come
yeah,
up with that on their own.
yeah,
At a base unit for a kid, they just want to have fun and friends. That's it.
yeah.
We're the ones that ruin that. John Barnes
Well,
taught
and,
me
and
that one.
and the other thing that we should be looking at with how do we make meets more fun is, okay, why is it that high school swimming has become a thing where for a lot of kids it keeps them in it.
Mhm.
It's the season where they reset and they go for it. It's not the same thing. There's some variety to it, and I think that we can learn from that. I'm not. I do coach high school. I think people know that. I think it's really important. I think it's a lot of fun. Is it detrimental to kids who are doing 200s of stroke if that's your big thing? I don't know. Maybe it
No,
is, maybe it's not. It
it's
depends
not.
on the kid, and it depends on who they are. But, again, if we're framing this as what is the user experience like? What is the customer experience like? There's a reason when parents get done with their first high school meet, they walk out and they look like they've just been baptized. They're like, oh my God, I can go home and I can eat a real dinner, and we don't have to go to Burger King or something, get something at the last minute. You actually
Yep.
get out of there at a reasonable time. And there isn't a lot of wasted time. There's always something interesting. There's something to that. And
Mhm.
we need to, going back to that block party idea, you can do that with block party. That's why it's popular. That's why people like it, because you don't have to worry about some of the constraints that you would have in a regular meet. Oh, I screwed this up. I want to change all these warm ups. Oh, they're in the meet information. I got to resanction the meet. Block party, you don't. You just make the change. I mean, you call up the other coach you're dueling with, or if it's your staff, and you just say, hey, can we do this? Sure, done. Whatever. That There's something to that. And again, do I think that those kinds of meets should be run at the elite level? No. I mean, but if you want to have some fun with your college kids, or you want to see what they can do after a great workout and say, hey, we're all going to go in 800 now. We're gonna throw it in the database. So get your suit on. I know we just did 12,000, but hey, what's
Yep.
another 800 going to do? You
Nothing.
can do that. Right. You can do that. You can do all kinds of weird stuff. One of the things I've wanted to do, and I haven't done it yet, but we're going to do it this year. I want to run. We have a 12-yard diving well that's wired up for touchpads. I want to put those in, and I want to get official 12-yard times on all my kids.
Make
Why?
sure they're wearing helmets.
Yeah. I mean, but it it will be interesting to see how fast can you go.
Yeah.
What if you ran a meet where you ran a tether on kids? They dive off, and when it got to 15 meters, shut itself off.
Yep.
You'd get some incredible 15-meter information off of your kids, and it
Yep.
would be standardized across the board. Then you could work on that and be more explosive. I mean, again, by tying some of the things that we want to see as coaches in with some of the things the kids want to see and make it fun,
Mhm.
why not? Do it. That's block party.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I know it's not logistically easy to do, but you think of like handicap sprints where you start people at different times to make the race even. Like that's some of the best racing there is in my book, right? Like
The
anybody can
drag
be a
races
winner.
series.
Yeah. Like anybody can be a winner. Roll it out there. So that kind of stuff. And I agree. I think it comes back on the coaches. Like a lot of those parents aren't involved in it long enough, and their primary focus should be their kids' safety, their kids' happiness, all that stuff. The athletes are the athletes. They're there to experience. So it does come down to coaches. Do you think we have what it takes? I worry, and I see this in high school, that there's programs that have and a lot of programs that have not. And the ones that have don't seem to be feeling the same pains that the ones that have not are. So there seems to be a little less urgency there to change things. Do you think that could be an issue, or do you think we can overcome that? Right? Like that's I hate to
I
be real like
I
that, but
want to I
it's
want to
the
hear what
truth.
Tom has to say
Yeah.
before I say anything.
I think that unless we make a concerted effort to change in going into 2028 to 2032
Yep.
with some long-term sustainability of making things better, I think you're only going to dwindle. I've seen it since I started coaching in 2010. There used to be 68 teams in the state of Minnesota.
Yep.
We are down in the low 50s, might even be in the 40s at this point. That's club teams.
Yep.
And those teams and organizations don't exist anymore. And I think you're seeing that squeeze just slowly happen. What do you need to have a team? You need to have a coach that cares about some kids, and you need to have some kids that care about swimming. That's it.
Water.
And water time.
Yeah. But any
But
water time will do.
but we're slowly and rapidly losing at the same time both ends of those. Coaches walking away for a more sustainable life, kids finding other things. And JB said earlier, not every kid wants to swim. That's okay.
Yeah. It's not
But
for
I want
everybody.
every kid that does want to swim to not feel like it's too much of a burden to swim and they're missing out on too many other things. They should be able to come and swim.
Yep.
I don't know. Do we need to change our programming? Do we need to change our core philosophy on things? I think about Minnesota swimming mission and its, sportsmanship, integrity, excellence, and fun. And I don't know how much fun we're having when it's the same thing every year, and it gets later and later when we find things out, and it's getting more and more difficult to do it, going back to the running these meets. And you can only do so much creative thinking and assembly of different meets and stuff like that. But if the general organization of Minnesota Swimming isn't going to buy into that, you can only tread water for so long before you're going to go under, because you can't sustain it if no one else is going to do it with you.
I agree. I agree. JB, you bit your tongue
So
nicely.
yeah, well, and no, I agree with everything Tom said. I'm old. I'm 56 years old now. I've been doing this full time basically since 1991. Excuse me, 1992, and it's a lot of things have changed. When I first started coaching, Obviously, we weren't getting paid the same amount of money. I was working hourly and trying to make it a full-time gig. We had a lot of people, a lot of coaches, young coaches who were eating ramen, and that's just how we did it, and working our asses off and teaching privates and just doing everything you could to make money so you could stay on deck and keep learning. And I was taught by an absolutely incredible coach named Dave Dollar and another coach named Drew Walden, who are both incredibly kind and helped me a ton. And I have been fortunate to learn from every coach that I've worked with. Fred Russell at Elmbrook, Brent Bach at Elmbrook. I knew Brent before Brent was coaching all the national record holders. He was the age group coach at Elmbrook forever, and he was a darn good age group coach. But we all had the benefit of being mentored, and I think there's so much information out there now. It's almost like it's a critical mass, and it's paralysis by analysis. There's 500 different things you can do, but I think a lot of people don't know how to pick something and just kind of stick with it. So it's chaotic. It's not really a curated experience, because I can look at 12 different swim influencers and find exactly the video I want to illustrate something I'm doing. I don't even necessarily need to talk about what they're doing and the drilling. I'm looking for something different. But I've been mentored, and people took the time to teach me. And I've also been lucky because a lot of the teams I've been at have had incredible swimmers. So who were coached by those incredible coaches, and I could make, observations about, wow, I really like the way this is going, or what, if I'm ever in that position, I think I'd try it a different way, and even on things, just talking to kids. One of the real formative events for me, I've told Barnes this story. I had a good swimmer. We were in Indianapolis for the summer Niska meet. Um, she had swum a poor 200 IM. I was a little salty about that, and let her know how I feel. And she turned around and swam a great, I think it was 100 free. And she came back, and I was still pissy about that IM. And I was like, well, you could have done that, Deb. And she left, and she was obviously upset. And Barnes looked at me and he said, you realize that the reason she swam that well was because she was trying to make it better for you. And that's the point where you need to say, hey, way to rebound. He goes, not everyone's going to be a great swim.
Wisdom of
And,
Barnes.
but that was exactly what I needed to hear at that point of my being a coach. And somebody cared enough about me to say, dude, you're playing this one wrong. And, don't got to listen to me, but he's coached some pretty good kids, and I'm going to listen to John. And the other thing is I think that he has incredibly strong relationship.
Yeah. I know I'm Mr. Rainbows and Unicorns and shit like that, but I think every coach should care as much about the sport's health as they do their team's health.
Yeah.
And I don't think we get a lot of that.
No, I mean, you're seeing it around the deck, and like I think it's easy when things are going well.
Yeah.
But when they're not going well, and when things start to fade, or things start to get hard, or the recession hits, or maybe a new team starts, or whatever it is, I think that really shows that true character. And when things are status quo, it's easy to just be like, well, this is just the way we always end. But I still think there is a better way, and I think it's going to take some. I still think it's going to take some effort and elbow grease to make some significant changes, and they've got to come top down, and it's got to. I think it does somewhat have to start with our championship meet structure and things like that, but it's got to start with how are we better, and how are we better as a community. One of the things that I talked to Jessica Colby, the Red Dragons coach, she had a girl qualify for junior nationals.
That girl's good.
At the 11 to 14 meet. Awesome, great swim. Una Nelson, great swim. And she's like, I wish we could get more people at the Hulbert, but it's so hard to get people up here, and it's so hard. And she's a small team, so
It is.
running meets
And
becomes a challenge. We're a big team, and running meets are a challenge.
Yep.
We run a lot of meets, and we run meets because it's better for our kids to be able to actually swim, and Rochester's a great pool and
Yep.
things like that. But I I feel Jess's pain where she's like, we need people to help us to do this. And
Yeah.
you know, if the LSC could come together on that, I think that's really important, and that's the start in the right direction. And not every meet has to be at the U of M,
No.
and not every meet has to be at the rec center, and
Nope.
we can swim outdoors. I know John made Barnes made a post. He's like, I feel like summer swim meets should be outdoors, and
Be amazing.
we need to get back to that. And it's not necessarily about the time, it's about the racing. And
Yeah. And I
I
don't think
think
it's about even 50-meter outdoor pools. There's plenty of 25-yard outdoor pools you can have meets at too, and they'd be
yeah,
just fine.
just go race, have fun.
And I mean, if you ever caught a whiff of country club swimming out in the Western
Well,
burbs, it's awesome, right? It's all small pools. It's all
I'm
shallow.
going to
It's
tell you
all short.
guys,
And it's
if
fun.
the way you do it is take a look at the Madison All City League. And when I first started coaching, I was like, this is the worst. This keeps people from town. I was stupid. That was me not understanding what was important to kids and families and thinking that the most important thing was getting some AAA time or whatever. None of that crap matters. Madison All City League is comprised of, I think, 14 independent swim clubs. They have over 3,000 kids in the meet.
Yep.
They have kids who have made Olympic trials cuts. One of the best swimmers in the Midwest is Jane Garlock girl, who's really tall. I think she's 6'2", can sprint like crazy, 48-second 100 freestyle. She swam in the All City meet last weekend, and she went 50 point in the 100 free outdoors
Yeah.
in a short course yards pool. And that's a heck of a swim. Set the record, the whole deal. They want to swim. They want to do that. And then they also do a diving meet where they have like, I think 300 or 400 divers. And all of the events are short. They're
Whoa.
explosive. I think the longest race is 100 IM or 100 free. And they had that NAG kid, that Caleb Goodrevich, who set the national record for the 11, 1200. He swam in the meet. They're all swimming in that meet. And it means
Yeah.
something to them. What that does is that meet sets up every kid who swims in it, from a 6-year-old all the way to an 18-year-old. They learn how to sprint. That's the first thing they learn how to do.
Yep.
And they get aggressive. And then the second thing they learn is they represent their team. So you've got the two biggest things that, as a collegiate coach, as a high school coach, as a senior coach, I want my kids doing. I want them sprinting, and I want them to understand
Yep.
that we are a team. Why aren't we capitalizing on that? Why can't we create a situation? And you know
Yeah.
what? We could redo our state meets so that they would be more of that kind of a team focus. We can do that. We don't have to make those meets a qualifier for nationals and a qualifier for zones and a team experience and a time trial venue. Just make it something that's basic. And those other opportunities exist
Yep.
for people. We don't have to try to make one thing everything.
Yep. I agree.
Well, I think the other thing, I don't know if this is how All City works, JB, but like going back to your qualified things, we're so exclusive in our sport about who can do what and when they can do it and where they can do it. And we're talking like a 4-month season, right? That
Yeah.
like nobody swims long
Yeah.
course in the state of Minnesota until June. And then we're like, oh yeah, it's the long course season, April and May. And then you have a state cut, swim your 6 races at the state meet. So you don't have to go to 3 other meets to get to that meet. You don't have to go to the summer invite at Bloomington or wherever. Then you don't have to go to MRCs to get your 6 events. Then you can go to the state meet. Just if you have a cut, let them swim in the meet. They can't be like,
And it was
and just be
different
done with it.
when there was a dozen outdoor
Yeah.
50-meter pools that were viable, right? There's not anymore.
Well, I
There's
think
3.
we've all talked
I think.
about
Yeah.
the
So-
I think they're doing the whole
Aquatennial,
state.
wasn't the St. Paul Classic another big one? I mean, I remember
The old Star
I
meet
hear
used to be
about these
prelims
meets.
finals.
I remember hearing about those meets in the 90s when we were in Wisconsin, where I first learned how to coach.
Yep.
And, it'd be like, oh, we should go to that. That one's amazing, and
We actually hit the Aquatennial one year, and it was fun. God, it was a lot of fun, but
The medals were legit. They were little ship
that sounds
steering wheel
nice.
anchors. It's a big deal.
That sounds
I'll bring
nice.
you one.
So,
Thought you didn't make a podium, Mark.
It wasn't podium. You just go pick them up.
but
at
you
the
know
end.
what? Again, but again, to the point,
There's no podium.
not only were you like, yeah, the awards are great, but you knew exactly what they looked like. It meant something. And wouldn't it be
Oh,
cool
yeah.
if we had a bunch of teams buy into something like this and each team had a different medal?
Yeah.
And the idea was that you did your 6 meets and you got a different medal. And then you give them all to your mom and she shadow boxes it or something, or you keep them in a shoebox and you show your brother that you've got all the medals because he sucks, and just letting them know who's in charge. Whatever your motivation is for having them, I think a lot of kids would like to have something like that. It's a cool game.
What if all the medals fit together like a gauntlet?
No.
Yeah, like the Infinity Gauntlet.
Kiss solo
There we
albums
go.
posters.
I am going Thanos on this mother.
Yes. So
all I need
got
is
my
the
medal-
Hopkins Raspberry Ripple,
Then
and
I
it's
could-
complete.
one medal to rule them all.
The universe is mine.
But you know what? Seriously,
Oh.
But I
if
like
you had the
Stephanie-
opportunity, if you told a kid,
Yeah.
okay, you have 5 of these, and when you put them all together, they're gonna say like, I don't know, bullshit or something like that. And you can make that. Yeah,
It's
or
going to say
whatever. It
no
could be
cap.
you could say Minnesota swimming.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. Something like that would be
It could. Some of the best meats if you won your heat, you'd get a little box of Chips Ahoy cookies. Those were my favorites. Or the 2-liter of Dr. Pepper.
That's
which is great for any swimmer.
the big cheese meat that they run at Schrader in January.
Or the Cincinnati Pepsi Marlins.
At Schrader, what they do with this big cheese meat is everybody gets a box of Cheez-Its, and they run a long course meet in the beginning of February. Great meat. And everybody sucks because nobody's been training long course, but it reminds everybody this is out there, and some kids go pretty fast. Some suck, but it's fun.
So I think kind of get back a little bit on top before we wrap up. I think personally, and Tom said it needs to come from the top. I think we need to redefine what the top is, right? Like, I don't know if the current format works and we have the people in power in the right roles to drive that vision efficiently enough, right? And it's no disrespect to anyone in those roles at all. Nope. I just think it's kind of it's a overcomplicated, bureaucratic system that is not conducive to making rapid change.
Well,
which our
sport needs. Tom. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jimmy. I think that the reason I say, unless there is a governance piece of it that is going to say, this is how we're going to do it, and we stop doing it by committee constantly every 2 years, I just don't envision it changing. And there's not a way to put enough way to put enough pressure or stress to change it. And I think that's maybe the heart of the frustrating part. Do I think I have all the answers? No, but I do have 99 of them. Like, and
I have 3. Yeah. So maybe I have one that you don't have. I don't know.
Like, and I think it's not from a parent aspect of this, but as a coach aspect of kids and seeing it from all the levels in the past 15 years. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing all of these kids that have been doing prelims finals for the last 15 years being super elite swimmers. I'm seeing kids that have a lot of buddies on their team. They stick through it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. And if we're not getting core groups of kids together to swim, we're doing something wrong. And that's got to be the precedent. And it can't be burning out every mom and dad to do this along the way, and they find something else to do instead because it's so hard or it's so demanding or things like that.
Yeah. No,
I totally agree. JB, last thoughts as we wrap up. What's your wish we can make for our next step here?
Piggybacking on what Tom said, I actually think there's an opportunity to do this because and this is a terrible thing to say, but I do think that it's fairly accurate. I think a lot of the attention that we give kids in Minnesota, and it's like this in every LSC, we tend to favor the best kids, and we tend to really get territorial about how we're going to handle those kids and the opportunities they have within the LSC, with how we fund them, whatever. Where I think the opportunity is I don't think as much scrutiny is paid to the lower level kids. And I think because of that, we could do some pretty effective change. I think there's a certain threshold of kid where a lot of coaches have to say, well, they don't make my training group, or they're not good enough to do that. If we could identify that group of kids and create some opportunities where they could get together and race, and don't exclude anybody from your team. If you've got a kid who's got senior cuts and they want to hang out with their buddies at the meet and they want to anchor the relay, figure out a way to make it fun and challenging. Like to your point, Mark, say, we'll do that, but we've got a rule that if you've got a junior cut in this meet, anytime you start a relay, you got to anchor and you got to start 5 seconds. You have a 5-second penalty, a pit lane
Yeah.
penalty. Then you got to go. Well,
and here, put on this weight belt,
one of the
sir.
things
You'll be fine.
one of the things I appreciate
Half a
about
drag
Mace
sock.
is at Edina, he will do stuff like that all the time, where he's constantly screwing around with his relay lineups to see who responds under pressure, who maybe has something more in him. And you learn a lot about kids like that. I think that by coming up with some weirdo opportunities like that, who wouldn't like that? Because if that kid catches somebody and gets close, they're either going to be the hero or the goat. And the kid who got caught, you can reinforce it and say, dude, you almost held him off. You almost held him. That's what it's going to be like at the state meet. That's what it's going to be like at sections, whatever it is. So that's what I'm thinking.
It would be interesting, and maybe we have this and I'm just unaware and uneducated, a satisfaction metric for kids in the sport, in club, where we could get a lot of data on how happy they are about things.
I
Do we
think that
capture
high
that
schools do,
anywhere?
because I think it's mandatory within a lot of their programs that they do. We do on our club, we do surveys because we're part of the school, we're part of the school district. So that's different. But I think
Yep. I would just be curious to see what that's like. If we had a standard one people could use to, what is your likeliness of staying into it? Do you feel like you get the value from what you put into it? What are things that you'd like to see? And that would really kind of help, because we can look at participation and retention, but that's too late. Right. And I don't think we have a robust exit interview process for kids that quit. Right. We
Nope.
don't track down some 8-year-old and sit them down and go, all right, tell me why.
Oh, so-and-so didn't start up or didn't sign up this year.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I got an email that says Billy's taking a break.
Yep.
Why is he taking a break? I don't know, because the water was cold. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
who knows?
And it could be a million other reasons. I'm just saying that's one of them.
But I would love to have that data, and that would help kind of guide from the top of where we need to focus
100%.
our energy, in my opinion, if you got good participation of it. That doesn't seem like a
no,
hard
in
thing
fact,
to do to
you
me.
could make it, that could be something that the LSC could do. They could actually send out just a standard 4-question survey. Saw you didn't sign up this year. Be the last email we send you. Won't bother you, but we'd like to get your opinion about what your kid liked, what they didn't like, and we'll move on. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Yep. Throw in their age, number of years they participated, male or female. Keep it, depersonalized, and collect the data.
So
that's not hard.
Got to do the work. Yeah, it takes work.
Takes work.
No,
I'll do the work. Come on, sign me up, coach. Put me in. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's have another conversation in a month or so. Once we kind of get through the August, and maybe we'll get Barnesy on here too, or any other coach that wants to come and share their opinion. Everyone's always welcome. Minnesota Swim and Vibe wants to be that kind of place where we have all the tools for people to use. You just got to step up and want to use them and have these conversations. And I thank you both for doing that today. JB.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
All right.
Thanks,
Drive
guys.
carefully, JB,
We'll see you
unless
later.
you're home. All right. See you, Tom. Thank you.
Take care, guys.